Now, in order to start this video, I guess I need to ask the question, what is a cognitive function? So, what is a cognitive function? A cognitive function is the brain's way of perceiving and expressing the outside world. Now, in order to understand the outside world, we have to first understand what a function stack is. And a function stack is built up of 8 cognitive functions, and these cognitive functions are preferenced in a particular order depending on the individual's type. Now, there are 4 major functions or groups of functions: thinking, feeling, intuition, and sensing. And each of these 4 are split into 2 different functions, again, that can be either introverted or extroverted, and are cognitive axis linked to their counterpart function. For example, thinking and feeling are on an axis with each other. And if you take introverted thinking, it is on an automatic axis with extroverted feeling. And if you take extroverted thinking, it is on an automatic axis to introverted feeling. The same is true for intuition and sensing. If you take introverted intuition on its own, it's on an automatic axis to extroverted sensing, and if you take extroverted intuition, it is on an automatic axis to introverted sensing. Now, with all that stated, no function can exist on its own. It has to exist with its polar opposite, but it can be expressed differently and in a much more exaggerated way if another function is taking the hit, so to speak. What that means is that the functions, in effect, play a seesaw game. For example, if you have high extroverted intuition, you will have low introverted sensing. And if you have high introverted thinking, you will have low extroverted feeling. So we can organize everything into a function stack. Okay? Now, there are 8 stack components. Okay, and each cognitive function behaves differently depending on which cognitive stack slot it currently occupies. For example, a TI hero or top slot function is incredibly quick to calculate, and a TI inferior, however, a 4th slot function, is very slow and very insecure. Take me, for example. I'm an INFJ, and what that means is I have an I hero, and I will be very quick to put together patterns and concepts of those patterns. However, I have SE inferior, which means I will be very concerned about how I perform and how I come off to other people. And you might even hear that as a stutter in my voice. Although there is a stutter in my voice, it's not necessarily SE inferior, and it could also come off as SI inferior or even FE inferior, whereas TI inferior could be very slow in its thinking and could actually be taking extra time to be extra careful in order to get its thoughts correct. As opposed to TI hero, which is very quick to deduce and pick the correct option even before full deliberation and fact-checking can actually conclude. Now, what are the cognitive function stack slots? Well, first, there's the hero or top slot function. Next is the good parent or 2nd slot function. And next comes the child or the 3rd slot function. And then the inferior or 4th slot function. The Nemesis comes after that, or 5th slot function. The Critic comes after that, or 6th slot function. The Trickster, or in some systems they put it as the Polar function, or 7th slot function. And finally the Demon, or the 8th slot function. Each of the slots themselves is actually either positive or negative in process. The Hero function, for example, is the top slot, and it is a positive function. The parent function is a negative function. The child function is a positive function. The inferior function is a negative function, whereas the Nemesis is a positive function. And the Critic is a negative function. The Trickster is actually a positive function. And finally, you get to the Demon, which is the most negative of all the functions. The functions themselves react differently depending on how they are approached. For instance, if a person were to insult someone's hero function, the individual will probably shake that off, thinking it's not really anything worth worrying about. And the same goes for a parent function. However, if you attack their child function or their inferior function, you could be subject to assault by the parent function or the critic function, or you might even awaken the demon function. And never attack an individual's inferior function unless you want them to absolutely despise you. That's the quickest way to get an individual to hate you. But this is why we have FEs, so we can speak to an individual in a way that doesn't necessarily hurt their feelings. And depending on what we say, may actually help to improve them. The final function I wish to address is the Trickster function, or the 7th slot function. Now the big deal about the Trickster, or the 7th slot function, is that it's our blind spot. So basically, the one thing we have a lot of difficulty doing, and it may even be, or seem to be, impossible for us to do it. We can emulate this function, but we more or less don't display this function consciously. It's not something that is available to our cognition. For example, I have TE as my Trickster function. What that means is my biggest issue is efficiency, and the fact that I will not have a clue about what anybody thinks. Now, I can emulate this function in different ways. For example, imitating what I've seen other people do and applying their emotional perspective and their actions in a way that I can try to deduce what they're thinking. And that's everything. I hope that this video was helpful, and I'll see you in the next video.